All right, so we are live with my man Aaron Muncie. Dude, I am super stoked to have you on for another client spotlight interview. Do you real quick just want to introduce yourself, name of the company, what you do, how long you've been around, just kind of some of that basic stuff?
Sure. I'm Aaron Muncie. I'm the sole proprietor of Bounty Painting. I quit my day job and went out on my own. I quit doing side work October 1st of last year. So I've been doing this for 9 months. I have at one time had 3 employees, and now I have an employee and a half. And I kind of started subcontracting, which I didn't think I would do until I went to the PCA Paint by Numbers.
So
And
give
that's
us
kind of it in a nutshell.
give us the rundown of that a little bit, because 9 months running your own company, that's not a long period of time by any means, but you've seen a lot of growth. You've learned a lot. You've surrounded yourself with the right people and all of those things. Like, give me some of the background in the story for how you went from starting your own company in 9 months, making some of the shifts you've had, hiring people that quickly, that sort of thing.
Sure. I've always done side jobs, little painting, little light carpentry, anything I can kind of get away with without a license or anything like that. And it's very common in the trades. And I've worked in the transportation industry for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. I never drove, but I was a broker, dispatcher, that kind of thing. And I had a large subcontracting job, or a friend of mine flips houses and does a bunch of stuff. And I did that job for the first 4 months of last year, me and another guy, and that bled into 3 more jobs. And I thought to myself, I'm making pretty good money. Maybe I should look at a trade that in my side business, maybe I should look at a trade with a lower barrier to entry and see if I can put some feelers out there. Because I know a bunch of realtors, I know a bunch of contractors, and here in Minnesota where I'm at, everybody knows 5 contractors.
Sure.
They are not all created equal. But I asked a buddy of mine, I said, hey, if I was gonna maybe go full-time painting, would you be able to throw me any work? And it just so happened, I'm super blessed, the timing worked out perfect. He says, Aaron, I can keep you busy for the next 4 months. So I made that jump. And I'm always a person, you never want to be the smartest guy in the room. If you are, you're in the wrong room. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I think there's tons to learn always. So in the side jobs that I did last year for painting really is the finished product. You're often the last contractor in the house. You want to make it look really good. And I've painted a lot, but when you're charging somebody for it, you want to make sure you're doing a good job. So I went online and found some people. I found Chris, the Idaho painter. Awesome guy. But that gave me the confidence. I can do that. I can cut in lines. I can roll. I can do well enough that I feel confident charging somebody for it. Quit my job October, last week in September, went full time, and I'd had the company for 3 years, just the LLC.
Sure.
Went out on my own and instantly decided I need to know more. Googled a podcast, found Tanner Mullen. I'd kind of seen Nick Slavic, and I started watching him every Saturday and following him. Tanner was awesome. I got drip jobs, and that changed the world, because when you're by yourself, you need somebody to help you follow up. You need organization because you're doing all of it. Yeah. But through listening to his podcasts, I decided that I was going to hire somebody sooner rather than later. Because if I have to go to the paint store, production stops. Even if it's just prep or whatever, production stops.
Yep.
So I decided to hire some people. I started listening to some other podcasts, and I'm kind of a loudmouth introvert, is a quote I'm going to steal from Nick Slavic.
I love that.
I just networked and networked, watching Nick Slavic's Ask a Painter Live. He pushes the PCA really hard with good reason. I joined the PCA. It's extremely affordable. It pays for itself instantly, just with all the content you have. And something Tanner says is dig your well before you're thirsty. Well, in January, I was fairly thirsty. The contractor that I'd been working for, and I'd picked up some other stuff. I mean, I wasn't dying on the side of the road yet, but I was pretty nervous. And I reached out to Tanner and said, hey, do you know anybody that can help me write some Facebook ads? I've got a good vocabulary. I can write. There's people that do that for a living that can help me out. And something that he always says, if you don't know how to do it, if it's something, whatever, just sub it up.
Mm-hmm.
So he put me in your direction. So I reached out to Pathfinder Marketing. And in my initial phone call with you, you seemed fairly surprised that I knew where I wanted my cost of marketing to be. I had ideas. I'm a
Most people
spreadsheet
don't.
nerd. Yeah, I'm a spreadsheet nerd. But we came to agreement. I really liked the product. And to be honest, I was terrified. I hope I didn't show it in that first interview, but I was terrified. My cost of marketing wasn't always where it should be or where I wanted it to be, but I'm understood the process. You guys did a great job of outlining the expectation. This is what we're going to do. You've been available to me. And I never lost money. I think that first month I was like maybe $100 less than what I spent for the first month.
Sure.
I didn't think that was too bad.
No, that's pretty normal.
Every month after that, what am I talking about? I've been way over what it's cost me. It's also put me in front of more homeowners, which also gets you, I've had repeat business because of it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you find on the forums all the time is, what should I charge? What should I charge? What should I do about this and that? Know your worth, know your worth. And every once in a while, somebody will say, and be worth what you're worth. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
always want to be better. I always want to learn more. Something that happened as a result of the PCA. I'm in Minnesota. I'm super blessed to be here. Nick Slavic's here, Paris Painting's here, Olive Holdings is here, M. Carlson Painting. And I'm, like I said, out loudmouth introvert. I did an estimate about 3 miles away from Paris Painting. And I had just happened on the way to the estimate, listened to a podcast by Jason Paris and then his head of marketing, Nate. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see where they are. So I drove over there and they're kind of a big deal. They're
Sure.
kind of a big deal. I just walked in cold calling, like I'm going to try and get their water cooler business. And it was a Monday or Tuesday. Everybody was in meetings. Some gal happened to be walking through the office. I said, hey, I'm looking for Jason Paris. What's this about? I said, I'm going to be completely transparent. I really just want to say hi and thank him.
I didn't know this story. This is amazing.
Yeah. Gave her my business card. And I've told it about 20 times at the PBN event. And he called me an hour later, which I thought was a really big deal. He's got a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Took the time to talk to me. Similar story with Nick Slavic. I asked him for SOPs, owner's manual, all that stuff. And I've been in a position in my past to hire employees for another company. And I was an employee. I had to hire somebody for my team. Well, you don't realize, and I've helped manipulate and create SOPs, employee manuals, all of that. Well, when you're creating it from scratch, it can be really difficult.
Yep.
In the beginning of the year, Nick does a series of professionalization. And I just emailed him and he says, yeah, I'll send you that stuff. Sent me all his SOPs, sent me, these are the requirements to keep your job. These are the requirements to get promoted. Here's my employee manual. And I have said this to his face. I just basically copied it. I put my logo on it, same color code, everything. I put my logo on it because his is all color coded for prep, paint, B-prep. And I tweaked some things that I do a little differently, which I think is important. I read the whole employee manual and tweaked some things, like he works 410s and I don't. His uniform policy is different, just things like that. I updated. That has, just those things have changed dramatically how I operate, what I do. He told me to read the book Traction, and as it turns out, everybody in the painting industry should any business should absolutely read that book. And that has really changed how I look at stuff, because I can fumble through and figure stuff out. I didn't have to. I didn't figure any of this out. People who are way more successful than me said, here's what you should do. It's on me to do it. Cut and paste, man. Just cut and paste. These guys are doing this. Okay, just copy it. You don't, and the industry is amazing because these guys, oh, we're all in the same market. Big hitters. Yeah, what can I do to help you get some more business? You're not going to bother me at all.
Right.
One of the things, you know, and you worry about that when you're a small guy. Well, I'm not going to talk to him because he's going to take my business. Nope. You know how much paint your average or my local paint store sells in a day? Way more than I'm putting on the wall.
Exactly.
Way more than I'm putting on the wall.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of market out there. There's a lot of people who want to help you. It was just really easy. Going through the book Traction, get your core values, get your focus. We've talked about it on coaching calls. Get your core focus, get standard operating procedures, not so that you can be a nerd. I am a nerd, but how are you going to standardize what you do? You've got employee A that's pretty good, can do it, but you've got employee B that you're bringing on, doesn't know anything. How are you going to teach them? How are you at least going to say, all right, the first thing we do is put out the yard sign. The second thing we do is say hi to the homeowner. Then we confirm the scope and the colors, and the list goes on. If you don't have those things, you're going to struggle, and you're probably not going to be fairly successful. And just as an example of that, everybody's worked in food at some point. You know, your first job, you work at McDonald's or Hardee's or Jack in the Box, wherever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. When you start at McDonald's, they have a process. This is how you run the cash register. This is how you work the mop. This is how much soap you put in the mop bucket. Everything. That's why when you go to McDonald's in Minnesota, it's the same as when you go to a McDonald's in Arizona.
Yep. Yeah. The remodeling company I used to work at, and I don't think most companies that, you know, you and I probably talk with, most painting companies probably need it to this level. But the remodeling company I used to work at, which was a pretty big company, they had like the office SOPs for, you know, call center and all that, literally down to like, click here, click here, click here, like literally down to every little tiny details what to click, which is very similar to, you know, corporate structure and everything. So,
oh, absolutely.
It's very important. So I think this is really interesting. I think I'm gonna ask a deeper question here.
Go ahead.
You seem to, there's a lot of things that you do very well that seem to have come natural, right? You have the right head on your shoulders. You think about things the right way. You always want to be learning, right? You like spreadsheets and data and numbers and some of that sort of stuff, right? You've a lot of the way to think about things and get in the right room and not see competition, but see things from a point of abundance. Those things, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of seem to have come naturally for you. Like, where did those come from? Like, was it a way you were raised? Was it something that happened? Like, where did that mindset and the way you approach this game of business come from so early on?
I have no idea. My parents and my family are not like that at all.
Interesting.
At all. What I've done, my parents, scares the crap out of them. And I'm doing better than they ever did.
Yeah.
I'm having a better year this year than they have ever had together. And I'm blessed because of it. What not knowing enough is a mindset. I don't come across that way all the time, but not knowing enough and always wanting to know more has been the biggest thing. Something that has really changed my attitude is everybody's got a story. Everybody's got terrible stuff that happens to them. I was in a sermon years ago and the preacher said, choose joy. And that bothered the crap out of me. I'm like, choose joy. You have no idea what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be in a group, a men's group years later. And I was probably the youngest guy, and I'm almost 50 now. It went all the way up to 80. Some weeks there'd be 2 guys, some weeks there'd be 15. And during that few year period, I realized terrible stuff happens to everybody. The people you know who are constantly positive, constantly in a good mood, terrible stuff happens to them too. And it changed my life. If you change your mind, you'll change your life. I'm blessed. No matter what's going on, I'm blessed. and going into the painting, like the spreadsheets and everything. I get that not everybody likes that. However, I'm going to do a plug for the PCA, going to the PBN event. I love all that information. However, if you don't love all that information, it's a huge benefit to just see it. It makes you think about things differently. It makes you, oh, this is what these guys are doing. I have no idea what job costing is. I have no idea what my labor percentage is. I have no idea what, you know, or I'm going in and I don't really have a systematic way to give an estimate or a sales process. And to be honest, I've known a bunch of fairly successful salesmen that have no idea what they do.
Same. I know a bunch.
They're just insanely charismatic, and it's really worked out for them. Well, if you want to duplicate that, what are you going to do? And just the thought process, some more knowledge to chew on. It was so worth it to go.
Yeah,
and
incredible.
So worth it. So I really don't have a good answer for it. I just,
no, that's okay. I was curious because and I feel like that's something we don't see enough in the industry, right? I think we see a lot of people that are, this is how I've always done it, and more closed-minded. And I think that's something we're all out there after to shift. And that's why I think some of these events and some of these things are so important. So I was curious because you're relatively new to the game of business, 9 months in, you had that clear head on your shoulders, the right way to think about it.
I'm relatively new to this business. This is the most successful business I've had. And there's all kinds of sports analogies and memes that say that people only see your success. They don't see the failures.
100%.
I've owned like 4 businesses.
Yeah.
This is the only one that really made money.
Yep. And that's the thing that a lot of times people don't see. Absolutely.
Right.
Same with me. I had a handful of companies too before Pathfinder, several years before anybody saw anything. Yeah. So I get that.
Right.
So you had some of that experience. You had the right way to think about things. You loved learning. You were getting in the right rooms. What are some of the biggest things like in this 9-month journey? Like, what are some of the biggest like bumps in the road you've had to overcome? What are some of the biggest things that, you know, obstacles, things you had to get over along this journey so far?
You're not going to make every customer happy all the time. You're not. You're just not. And how you manage that. I had a customer, and I brought it up on a sales coaching call that you do, which are phenomenal, by the way. I don't know anybody else who does that. It gives you the opportunity to. I have reached out to like Russell Peach. We started chatting. Turns out, oh, we're both independently of Pathfinder. And I was like, oh, we're on the same coaching call. And we've chatted about a bunch of stuff.
That's cool.
One of the biggest hurdles is an upset customer that you did everything right. But what I did first was, what could I have done to eliminate this? Maybe put some stuff in writing, maybe communicate timelines a little better. What can I do to mitigate this in the future? That learning curve and realizing you might not know as much as you think you do, because in my something I learned is the average painting contractor in the US is under 1.5 people.
Yep.
So what that tells me is a lot of people own their job. When you own your job, you're also the marketing guy, you're also the accounting, you're also HR, production, all that stuff. That takes a lot away from you. And arguably one of the most important things to do is run the business, not production, run the business. And to realize I might not know enough. I've never been an accountant. My parents weren't accountants. It didn't put me in this mindset. Tanner Mullen again. I went and asked him, I said, okay, do you know anybody who I could look to for being a bookkeeper? Yep. Bookkeepers for painting. Awesome. Well worth every cent. I don't think it's that affordable. It's way less than hiring somebody to do it. And they know what we do. They have reached out to me and said, hey, so-and-so didn't cash this check. You may want to check in on that. Hey, you bought a vehicle. Do you have this, this, and this?
Yep.
Most bookkeepers just code your books at the end of the month.
Yep.
They
You're
have
100%
much
right.
more services. Yeah. That stuff is, oh, okay. I maybe need to do something here. Marketing costs. Well, I was a little surprised as to what I would spend for marketing, whether it be flyers, whether it be you, whether it be whatever. Because I kind of went out on my own, didn't have a history of painting. I didn't have a bunch of contractors listening to podcasts to realize, okay, I've got a lot to learn here, and then go out and learn it because it's on you. If you
Yep.
want to do something, you have to do it. You're leading that ship.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I think it's all really, really powerful. I want to touch on the marketing and sales point of view. Obviously, we do a lot on the marketing and sales side. What
Yep.
were some of the biggest hurdles you feel like you faced on that front, either like before you started working with us or just in terms of the marketing and sales side in general?
Same thing everybody works on. How do I find customers? How do I find customers? And I thought to myself, hey, am I going to go to something like Paperboy, where they go out and they knock on doors for me? And that's a huge hurdle, especially if you're a sole guy, because you're one guy. That's a ton of labor, a ton of your time to go out and knock on 50 doors a day.
Yep.
Huge. So am I going to do that? Am I going to do a direct mailer? Direct mailer is not cheap. How do I dial it down to zip codes? I know that that's possible. I know that there's people that specialize in that, but I don't know how to do it. How am I going to do that? That was a really big hurdle for me. And for this is kind of a plug for you. When I spoke with you guys were really good at onboarding me. I felt like Nick Sharp, God bless him wherever he is now, he did an amazing job going through and explaining every step of the process, where all my dollars were going, what I could expect. And at the end of it, I really didn't have any questions. He really covered everything. And it was, I don't know, a 20-minute call. I was impressed with that. And the results.
Of course. Yeah, I think you kind of touched on this earlier. I think one of the things you said earlier, which is really cool, and something I preach all the time is expectations, right? I feel like it's very in alignment with what you said was like, maybe great about working with us, but also something you kind of had to realize as far as like not every customer is going to be happy and those certain things. And, I always say like most people don't fail like because marketing doesn't work. They fail because expectations weren't properly set oftentimes. And that's like anything. Most customers in businesses don't fail because one party didn't deliver or do what they said they would do. Most people fail because expectations weren't properly set. I think it's huge. I think it's cool that that's something you recognize and that's something you've kind of experienced on your own journey too. I think it's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's incredibly important. I am finding to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is exactly what we're going to do. We're not going to do any extra. One of the other things to add to that is if a customer's adding things, charge them for it. Right then, yes, we can do it, but maybe not use figure out how the best way you can soften the blow to them. It's going to be an additional whatever, and it's going to take some time, or we might have to come back to do it because we've allotted 3 days for this job, and setting that expectation and then following up in an email. Following up so you have it in writing, and at the end of that email, having a call to action. Say, hey, can you just reply and let me know that you saw this?
Exactly.
That has been a really big deal. And some of the processes, like a sales process, going in, this is what I do, this is what I say, this is what, and you can vary from that a little bit because you don't want a canned pitch.
Of course.
But you need to have the same processes. When you measure a room, this is what you do, so you don't screw it up.
Yeah.
Or forget.
No, I love it. I got just a couple more things for you.
Sure.
I'm curious too, you as somebody that you clearly spend a lot of time thinking about this, right? You clearly, um, as I've said a couple of times, you have a great head on your shoulders. You're incredible at what you do. I'm sure you have a vision of like what's next. So I'm curious, like you've built this company, you started seeing some success. You've dialed in your marketing and sales process. Where like what's next here for Bounty Painting? Like where do you see it? Where do you see it going? What's the vision?
I would like to have enough revenue. I would like to do $1 million next year. And that would allow me to put some of the right people in the right seats. There's 5 people you should have to run a company. I'd really like to have the 5 people. In 5 or 6 years, I would like to be attractive to a company to purchase me.
Amazing.
And I don't want to sell, but if
You
you're
wanna,
attractive, you're doing things correctly.
yep.
And that's a benchmark for me. Like, okay, if I don't want to say a name, but if that company's interested in looking at me, say, oh, okay, we could just take Aaron out of there and the company would run without me. And that's something that Nick talks about, Jason Paris talks about. The Olive Holdings team is a phenomenal team, just a really great group of humans. That I really took that away from the Paint by Numbers event. That's what I want to do next. And I think that's everybody to think about, what's your exit strategy? If you're 1.5 guys and it's you and your son or somebody, what's your exit strategy? You're just going to save enough, done?
It's funny. This is something I've thought a lot about as well, and I talk often about with my marketer friends and my painter friends is exactly that. I don't see myself exiting Pathfinder anytime soon, but we're building it with the intention of that, right? We're building it with the systems and the processes and the SOPs and the team members and the leadership and all those things, so that exactly that, like, it would be attractive to be sold, even though I may never do that. But we want to get to that point, right? It's building the business the right way, even if you plan on never actually taking the exit. And I think that is so powerful. I think that's a huge golden nugget for anybody. So that's awesome.
No, and my whole mentality is I've tried several businesses, like you said, you have too. An entrepreneur's mentality, I learned so much at that event. It was arguably free. But really, with what I've started doing instantly, it's arguably free. How to reach different goals, what are some options, what benchmarks should you be at before you start doing this, and this. But to sell what is kind of my baby, okay, then what am I going to do? Because I'm not going to be happy sitting around.
Exactly.
No entrepreneur is.
Exactly. No, I'm the same exact way. So I guess last thing here before we wrap up, the last question I always ask everybody on this is, if you were talking to, a young painting company owner, right? Somebody starting their painting company in, a spot similar to where you were, when you were just starting out, like, what one piece of advice would you give them to help them get where you got faster?
This is going to sound like a plug. It's really going to sound like a plug. Join the PC. There's so much information there to help you be a better business owner. What your standards are for what is the standard for a painted wall? What can you say this is a painted wall? Most people have no idea. Also, what I get from Pathfinder marketing is so much more than the actual marketing. The sales calls is huge. The networking to be able to work out the problems. And it's not always about the sales process. In fact, a lot of times we dive into a rabbit hole that valuable to all of us, even though you don't say something. And sometimes the meeting will be slow to get started. You'll ask for a question and you'll say, Aaron, you've always got good questions. And I'll ask a question that I maybe know the answer to, but it's good for the group.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
People, I've never heard their voice.
I've had so many people, reach out to me for exactly that. I think it's cool that you said that. And I think that that piece of it is important, that collaboration, right? Like you were saying earlier, there's really no competition, right? There's so much to go around. And exactly that. I think it's cool how many people, clients of ours, have reached out to me and they're like, hey, just so you know, I know I never say anything on the coaching calls, but I've gotten so much out of them. Like this, and this all changed within my company.
Right.
Even though I know I never say anything, my camera's off, I'm in the background. So no, I think it's cool. I think that that community piece of it and getting around other like-minded people is so huge. Same thing with PCA, right? There's so much of that in there. I'm a huge, not to sound like a plug either, but I'm a huge fan of the PCA and everything Slavic and Paris and everybody is doing over there for the same reasons. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And if I could say anything, if you don't have, I think Pathfinder marketing's awesome. I'm a big fan. There's my plug. If you don't have that, go somewhere else. I'm sure Eric would wish you'd wish them the best of luck.
Of course.
However, you need a group of people. Iron sharpens iron. And in this industry, there's a lot of iron out there that's willing to help you with zero benefit to themselves. That's huge. It's humbling.
It is. And that's why I love this industry so much, this community so much, is because at least for me, more than any other trades, than any other service out there, I've never seen a community quite like this, where for the most part, people really do want to help each other. Which is cool.
There's outliers, but if you think about all of the members of the PCA, and there's some Karens there too, or trolls, or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
Is a very small population of the painters.
Yes, it is. Amazing. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on. I know you're super busy and have a lot going on. So I appreciate you coming on as always. And yeah, dude, I'll see you on the next coaching call.